So AEW Double or Nothing. There's too many W's and doubles back to back there. But unlike previous AEW pay-per-view events, there wasn't much of a pre-show live in the arena. They aired a lot of the pre-tape packages, which are
God, every man in the arena would have needed to shave after the third match if they'd have done a pre-show.
Well, I meant to say that maybe some of the matches that were on the main show traditionally would have been on the pre-show. It's just everything got pushed to the main show to extend the main show, which Tony Khan explained was part of a strategy.
Should we talk about that ahead of time? His strategy for what he did, and you can try to explain it to me.
Okay.
Or not.
I thought you were going to start talking and then I would explain. But here's from what I gather, Tony Khan figured out, and we have some audio we'll play later in the show. Tony Khan figured out that due to the basketball game being a big deal, there was a chance to get late buys. Because if the main event and a couple of the higher profile matches are later in the show, there are people who will finish the NBA game, need something to do, just happen to have $50 in their pocket, and want to see a couple of the matches, including CM Punk, who's the biggest star in the company. And that was part of his strategy. He also talked about the fact that UFC's big fights, the main events, and it happens in boxing too, those don't go on usually until very late. And again, this was part of the strategy. And the only thing I didn't understand was Tony Schiavone on air pushing, you still got time to be a part of this. Yeah, I'm a part of this. I bought the pay-per-view event.
Yeah, you still have time to watch the show where I'm speaking to you now.
Who else would be hearing this, Tony?
But here's the thing. Let me ask you this. Has it ever happened in history that somebody finished watching a free basketball game on television and said, oh, you know what? That pay-per-view that I could have bought and recorded in its entirety before this is still on, so I'm going to now buy it for the same price to watch the main event match only. Has anybody ever, if you're going to watch, you either record one or both, and you watch one live and one after, or both, or whatever the fuck. But has it ever been a thing where this dipshit kept this show going and going and going until the basketball game was over with before he would start his main event? And it was 1:45 in the morning in the Eastern time zone before this thing wrapped up. And yes, UFC fights and a lot of boxing matches do that because they're in Las Vegas too, and they don't give a shit. But also, nobody buys a boxing match or boxing card especially, or usually a UFC card, to see anything but the main event. Does anybody even advertise the goddamn undercard on a boxing pay-per-view, or do they give a shit?
Well, maybe the top two top two matches before the main event, but most of the preliminary matches, you have no idea until you get there what's going on unless you're a hardcore boxing
Is there
fan.
any feasible way that anybody said, oh, now that the basketball game is over with, I'll pay full price for 25% of the pay-per-view that I'd already decided not to buy?
I will say this. No one's ever done it before. And if it works, it's going to be very, very interesting. Because it says a lot about how people spend their money. And we know wrestling fans, there are less now than before, but they spend more than ever before. This will be interesting about how they spend and what they're willing to spend on. And if this works, this does say something about strategy for the future. I'll play you again audio later on. Tony Khan apparently really thought a lot about this and has numbers to back it up. So we'll see if this works or not. But this was seemingly a strategy.
Oh, Christ. All right, well.
But no pre-show. Very little on the pre-show, I should say.
Well,